I'd like to be a little more careful with my use of they. With that being said, my wife was away this week, and she was in a waiting room. She told me this story yesterday. So I wasn't there. This is secondhand information, and I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus for it. It just brought up a really interesting thought. I thought it was an interesting thought. So she's in the waiting room, and you know what it's like being in a waiting room. You hear other people have a conversation. She's alone. Other people are there with two and three people with them, and they're talking about. This family beside her are talking about a person who's recently transitioned. Who's recently transitioned to female. And the mother, we'll call her the mother, was using language she, using those pronouns. She's doing fine. She's doing better. She seems happy. And the daughter chimed in, "You mean it? Don't you mean it? It's happy. It's doing okay. It's healing." Now, obviously, this is come on. You don't have to be that way. In the immortal words of Buckaroo Banzai, hey, easy. There's no reason to be mean. Just remember what does he say? Just remember where you are, there you are, or something along those lines. Anyhow, the thought that popped into my brain as I was listening to Nanaya tell me this story was, who's the it in this story? Right? Who has chosen to leave the human race? Who's the it? Who's the unlabeled? Who is the uncategorized in this story? Is it the person who transitioned? Who went from male to female? Is it the person whose life was really turned upside down, but hopefully in a way that is ultimately healing? Is that person the one we now refer to as it? Or is the person making that mean statement the it? Only one of those two in the story is acting in a way that is acting in a way that God tells us not to act. Only one of those two people in that story that my wife told me is doing something that God specifically told us not to do. Do not condemn one another. And by calling someone it, we would be saying, you're no longer human. You're no longer one of us. You no longer have the right to be seen as a person. You're an it. You're a thing. You are something that is less than ourselves. You're something that we don't understand. You're something that we can't classify. You're something that we can't catalog. You're an aberration. You're an it. And when we do that, when we do offer that kind of condemnation, we are overstepping our role as human beings. We are calling one of God's children something that they are not. We are minimizing one of God's children. We are dehumanizing one of God's children. We are attacking one of God's children. And God doesn't want us doing that. Like, that's kind of the point of thou shalt not judge. That's not one of the lines, but you know what I mean? Do not judge. Don't judge one another. Don't condemn one another. Quit it. Knock it off. How many times does Jesus tell us to don't judge, don't condemn, don't condemn, or you too will be condemned. As you condemn, so too will God condemn you. It's a huge deal, because in that by embracing that task, By choosing to do it, we are choosing to place ourselves on an equal footing with God. And we're not capable. We don't have the capacity to do that kind of thing. We've been given a job. We're to love God, and we are to love one another. And we are to love one as we love one another. We are expressing our love for God. We've been given a job. Our job is to love. None of us got that down yet. Sadly, I don't have that down. Maybe you do. Maybe you're perfect and you're able to do this wonderfully. I don't have it in me. Most of the people that I know don't have it in them. We're not perfectly loving individuals yet. The hope is we'll grow to be, but we're not yet. And until we do our job perfectly, we have no business taking on God's job. And actually, I would argue, I think that if we were truly loving one another perfectly, what we would come to is a place, we would find ourselves in a place of such immense empathy and understanding of one another that we would never, ever dare judge one another, because we would just understand, right? We would get how people have come to be who they are, and because we could come to understand how people became who they are, there'd be no reason to condemn. I just want to hug you. I just want to keep you safe. I just want to help you. I just want to help you grow. I want to be there for you. That would be the natural. That would be our natural reaction to that kind of understanding, but by being that kind of a loving individual. So yeah, as Nanaya was telling me this story, well, you mean it, don't you? And I thought, no, you're the it. Like, you're the one in that moment where you are choosing to become God in that reception room. You are choosing to speak as though you know something that God knows. You are choosing to assume that you have the capacity, you have the ability, that you have permission to be a person of condemnation and judgment, that you've stepped into a role, a special role that none of us are supposed to have, but you've stepped into that special role. You're the unique one here. You're the unicorn. You're the Pegasus. You're the, you're the one that doesn't fit in. You're the it. Not the person who's transitioned. Not those people. Yeah, they might be different from most of our society, but they're still children of God. They are still living as children of God. When we step into that role of being judge, stepping into that role ultimately of being God, because we are proclaiming something upon those people, that's when we become the it. And again, we talked about using the word they. When we minimize people, when we dehumanize people, when we reduce people to it, well, how many of the great atrocities of the human race, just in the last 100 years, say, 150 years, 200 years, how many of our genocides, how many of those moments when human beings have did horrible things to other human beings, how many times did that begin by seeing others as it, seeing others as something less than ourselves? It's awful easy for us to do hateful things to people we don't see as people. Amen.